Hey everyone, I hope you're well. This is the story about what if Naruto was master of the forbidden jutsu Jiongu. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel and like the video as well. So without any further ado, let's start the what if. Sandaime's office. Truly fascinating, Hiruzen said as he read the copy of the Rikudo Senin's tale. I knew only the basic parts of the legend, but never knew about him having a brother or that he was a part of a clan. You think that's amazing? I'm related to the guy, Naruto exclaimed. He and Tsunade were in the Hokage's office, as Kurenai and Kakashi had to go and prepare for training their students. So am I Gaki, Tsunade said. Though I have to wonder, why didn't you copy down anything about the Rinnegan? The Hokage asked. Naruto opened his mouth to reply, but couldn't form an answer. You know, he began, I actually didn't see any of it. That's because Gigi made it so that only someone with a Rinnegan could read it, not even I could translate it, Kurama explained. Kurama says that only someone with the Rinnegan can see it, there's no other way to see it, Naruto parroted. A shame, I really wanted to see what those legendary eyes could do, Hiruzen muttered. Just then, Jiraiya and Kushina entered the office through the window. Hiruzen blinked at the sudden intrusion and sighed as he saw Jiraiya's injuries. Tsunade was filled with pride seeing that her training with Kushina didn't go to waste during her 12 years in captivity. Sensei, you are a cruel person, Jiraiya stated. Why didn't you tell me Kushina was alive? Did you want me to be beaten to death? Honestly, I believe that you deserve it since you decided to stay away from Naruto for about a decade, Hiruzen said. By the way, he's right behind you. Jiraiya whirled around and saw the young Uzumaki giving him a once-over. Jiraiya puffed out his chest in an attempt to look tough and asked, impressed? Is this kook really my godfather? Naruto asked, deflating Jiraiya's ego. Hey! I'm no kook, I am a member of the legendary Sannin, the Gama Sennin of Mt. Mayaboku. Women swoon in my presence, for I am the gallant Jiraiya, the Sannin declared while striking a ridiculous pose. Naruto just blinked and said, actually, I'm glad that this guy didn't take care of me. He might have tried to turn me into his clone. And Konoha can just barely handle Gai-sensei and Lee. Jiraiya just fell over in shock while Tsunade and Kushina fell over in laughter and Hiruzen just shook his head at his students' antics. After he recovered, Jiraiya stood up and glared at Naruto while saying, humph. Looks like you grew up to be a disrespectful little gaki. Tsunade, you've done a poor job of teaching this boy manners. Naruto rolled his eyes and said, she's done a better job than you, where have you been all my life? Making sure that Konoha, and by extension you, stay safe. I run a spy network that keeps me informed of any plots formed against the village or our allies, Jiraiya explained. Naruto then asked, was it too much trouble to come and visit? Or did you decide that family wasn't important to you? Jiraiya sighed, I did help you, when I heard that you were kicked out of the orphanage, I sent a ton of money to get you a home. It's true, while we were searching for you after you were evicted, Jiraiya sent me a large amount of money via Toad Messenger, the Sandaime confirmed. Naruto turned to Jiraiya and sighed, I still don't forgive you for leaving me, but maybe you can make it up to me. Well, I was planning on training you for the finals, that is, if you made it, Jiraiya said. Oh, he made it alright, and you're not going to be the only one training him, Kushina cut in. I'm going to help him, and so is Kyubi. Kyubi! Have you forgotten what that beast did? Jiraiya shouted. Long story short, he was being controlled when he was ripped out of me, Kushina said. So anyway, Pervert here is going to teach you the Rasengan, one of your father's original jutsu. I'm going to teach you Fuinjutsu and Kenjutsu, and Kyubi's going to help you with his chakra, your Jiongu, Sharingan, and Shikatsumiyaku. How much have I missed? Jiraiya asked as he sat down. And why does he know about his father? He should have been told when he was a chunin or 16 years old. He figured it out when some Kiri Genin mentioned the resemblance, Tsunade said. How do Kiri Genin figure it out when they never had any problems with Minato? Jiraiya asked. Because they were never focusing on his death like Iwa did, Hiruzen pointed out. They were more concerned with their civil war. Kurama wanted me to sign the Rikudu Senin summoning contract. He thinks that I'm ready to sign it, Naruto said. What? But you have to sign the Toad contract. Jiraiya protested. I don't think I can, Naruto stated. Why not? If you didn't sign that other contract, then you can sign this one, Jiraiya told him. Well, for starters, he already signed the Kitsune contract, Kushina said, and I would rather him sign a summoning contract held by the Rikudu Senin. But he's Minato's legacy, Jiraiya said. As much as he is my idol, I don't want to become his clone, Naruto told the Sannin. I mean skill-wise, I already have his hair and eyes. Alright, I'll have to speak with the Great Toad Sage about this new development, but now I'm gonna need you to scram. The grown-ups have some important things to talk about, Jiraiya said as he shooed Naruto away. The young Jinchuriki gave the Gamma Sennin a look before leaving. A week later. True to Kushina's words, Naruto was being trained by 3 senseis. Jiraiya had him learning about the Rasengan, a jutsu that Minato made after seeing the Bijudama, a skill Kurama said that he was a long ways from learning, as it required him to handle the version 2 form. However, before that, he still needed to get used to just being in version 1. Back to the Rasengan, Jiraiya had him start off with trying to pop a water balloon with only his chakra. It took a while for him to get it, but Naruto was able to successfully do it. Now, he had to pop a rubber ball. This step was difficult and had Naruto stuck on it for a while. When training with Kushina, the Fuinjutsu part of it just stuck with Naruto. He was able to understand a lot of seals and how to make some, a testament to his Uzumaki heritage. Currently, he was able to make his own explosion tags that held some more power in them than the regular tags. Kinjutsu was something completely different. It was very difficult for Naruto, especially considering he never took up a sword before. However, Kushina wouldn't hear any of it, deciding to make Naruto learn the art as he couldn't rely on taijutsu and his gauntlets forever. The Uzumaki sword style was very difficult as it involved movements that were like a whirlpool. The style was meant to confuse opponents while being able to giving them a lot of painful cuts. Jiraiya had mentioned that Killer Bee, the Hachibi Jinchuriki, developed his own sword style based off of the Uzumaki's own style. Currently, Naruto was training with Kurama as the Bijou instructed Naruto on how to control his chakra. He had red chakra oozing off of him as it evaporated into the air. The young Uzumaki was punching a training post lightly as he tried to get used to his enhanced strength and speed. Around the training field, Kage Bunshin were working on new techniques with the Jiongu, and were trying a special project that Jiraiya had suggested to Naruto. Excellent, at this rate you'll be able to move on to learning about version 1, Kurama praised. Why do I need to learn about this anyway? It's not like Sasuke's gonna force me to this, Naruto asked. You do remember who is fighting after you, right? Jiu asked. Oh yeah, Naruto chuckled sheepishly. Alright then, now we're going to try learn the Kamui, since that's the only ability we know you have, Kurama told him. So, any idea on how it works? Naruto asked as he activated his Mangekyo. Kurama closed his eyes in thought for a moment. I think that the technique revolves around you first learning how to transport something to your inner dimension. And no, it won't be here because this is your mind. Try using the long-range transportation first. Naruto nodded and gazed at a fallen branch before closing his right eye. He focused chakra into it and tried to make it do something. Then, the branch was slowly twisted as it seemed to be sucked into itself. The distortion of the branch surprised Naruto as he immediately let go of the technique, and the branch seemed to snap back into normalcy. Looks like you got the idea. Now all you have to do is move your chakra that you channel in your eye like a whirlpool, Kurama told him. Naruto nodded and tried again. This time the branch was absorbed into the distortion after about 40 seconds. Wow! Now how do I get it back? Naruto asked. Try moving your chakra in the opposite direction with your other eye, Jiu suggested. Naruto nodded and focused on the ground in front of him. The distortion came back, only this time it was spiraling outwards instead of inwards. After about 30 seconds, the branch appeared on the ground. Why was that easier? Naruto wondered. I think I have an explanation, Kurama said. When you're bringing an object into your dimension, you are pulling it. When you're bringing it back out, you are pushing the object out. Now tell me what's easier, pushing or pulling? 1. Pushing, Naruto said. I guess it's easier because there's probably less matter in the other dimension. Most likely, you could probably keep an arsenal of weapons in there. It's like the perfect storage scroll that you don't have to carry. You could also carry allies in there to have less risk on an infiltration mission, the Bijou pointed out. Man, I'm awesome. Now let's get some more practice in. Naruto declared with gusto. With Hinata. Hinata had her own training for the finals. While she wasn't working on things that would put an average genin into the hospital like her crush, she was still doing some difficult training. Faster! Anko shouted as she threw another barrage of kunai. Hinata stood still while only moving her upper body to dodge the kunai. Kurenai and Hitomi looked on with proud smiles on their faces. Hinata was training to learn her mother's version of Juken since it would suit her body type. They had tested her chakra element and found that she was a wind and water type, not suitable for the Juken as it was molded for those with the earth element. 2. Thus, this new Juken would use Hinata's natural flexibility as the base for its fighting style while keeping its original purpose to block the chakra network. Hinata is going to be powerful, this style looks like it will be perfect for her, Hitomi said. Kurenai nodded in agreement. Yeah, she might be able to throw Niji around if she keeps up this level of progress. Maybe, she could even get him to let go of his hatred, Hitomi sighed. Kurenai gave her a sympathetic look, having known about Niji's problem with the main branch and the cause of it. Okay Haim-chan, I can officially say that you're flexible enough for your new taijutsu, Anko declared proudly. Anko was there to help because she liked Hinata and the fact that she wasn't disturbed by her career in TNI. She also liked teasing her about Naruto, sometimes while using a henge to look like a sweaty version of the blonde Jinchuriki. Are you sure that this new style will help me beat Niji and Ai-san? Hinata asked. Hinata-chan, Hitomi began, with this new style, you will be able to dance around Niji and he won't be able to touch you. But Niji and Ai-san is powerful, I don't think that I'll be able to completely overpower him, Hinata protested. Anko dropped an arm over Hinata's shoulders and told her, sure your cousin with the stick up his ass may get a couple of hits on you, but that's about all he'll be able to do. Are you sure? Hinata asked. Let's make a little bet to give you some incentive, Anko began. If you beat your cousin, I'll buy you as many cinnamon rolls as you want. But if you lose, you have to buy me all the dango I want. Hinata's mouth began to water at the image of a mountain of cinnamon rolls. Hitomi couldn't help but giggle at the face her eldest was making before she snapped out of her stupor and got right back to work. With Shino. The Aburama heir was on his knees panting as he trained with his father. Shibi just stared at his son as his swarm of insects hovered behind him. The Aburames were working on Shino's control over his insects as he tried to create a move that would help him win his fight against the Oto Genin. Are you in need of a break? Shibi asked. I am fine, Shino said as he stood up. Let us rest, we will continue after a short break, Shibi told his son as he recalled his insects. Shino nodded and went over to sides where he drank greedily from a bottle of water. Shibi sat down next to his son. Your fight with Dosu-san will be difficult as his sound attacks can disrupt the movements of your insects, he said. If I cannot catch him with my insects, then I shall do so with my blades, Shino declared. Shibi nodded. Then you had better go and see Shirkai for more lessons. She is very happy to see another member of the clan who wants to learn how to perform close-range combat. Perhaps she can also help me with my newest weapon, Shino said. And what weapon would that be? Shibi asked. Shino merely took out a scroll and unsealed what was inside. Oh, I believe that she can help you indeed. With Dosu and Kin. We are nothing but tools to him. Dosu snarled as he slammed his hand against the table. He and Kin were in their hotel room as they were finished with training for the day. Calm down, I know it's frustrating, but we can't just fly off the handle here, Kin said as she tried to pacify the mummified genin. I'll prove to Orochimaru that I am not a tool by taking out his precious secret weapon. After that, I'll kill the Uchiha brat like we were supposed to. Dosa declared. Kin growled. Will you shut up and think for a moment? That Lee kid couldn't beat Gaara, and he went all out. If he went all out against us in the Forest of Death, we wouldn't have been able to make it to the tower. Dosa scoffed, he wasn't as fast as the speed of sound. You're right, Kin agreed. He was faster, she yelled. You might not have been able to see it, but I saw it perfectly. Rock Lee was faster than the speed of sound by only a tiny amount. Dosu then saw that going after Gaara might not have been a good idea. Then I'll just kill the Uchiha. Am I the only one with brains here? Kin sighed. Konoha should know by now that he has the curse mark, that means that he'll be watched 24/7. So go ahead and try to kill the Uchiha while he's being guarded by either Jonin's or Anbu. Dosu sighed and leaned back in his chair. Perhaps I'm letting my anger cloud my judgment. You think? Kin roared. Let's just train for the finals, Kami knows that I'm going to need it. With Fu. Those stupid, arrogant, worthless, idiotic assholes. The Greenette screamed as she smashed her fists against a training post. How dare they leave me here while they go back home just because they're sore losers? Fu yelled. Her anger had taken a new level of intensity as she remembered the conversation with her team. Their Jonin sensei was very disappointed at the fact that Fu, the village pariah, was the only one from Taki who was able to make it to the finals. So while Fu stayed in Konoha to train, the rest of her team decided to go back to Taki just to stay away from her. Don't worry, Fu-chan. I'm still here. Chomei, the Nanabai no Kabutomushi, proclaimed as he tried to cheer up his container. After meeting Naruto and Hinata for the first time, Fu subconsciously went into her mindscape the following night and met the giant bug. Contrary to popular belief, Chomei was the nicest of the Bijou, and the most outgoing as well. Fu formed a friendship with the Nanabai and was beginning to learn how to use the Bijou's chakra like Naruto was doing. I know Komiai-kun, but I'm still angry with them, Fu replied. Who needs them? You've got me, and your friends you made here, Chomei pointed out. Yeah, you're right, now how about showing me how to make those wings of yours? Fu asked. I thought you'd never ask. A week later with Naruto. Excellent, you're doing great. At this rate you'll be able to master version 1 in no time, Kurama praised as he saw Naruto gain control of the initial Jinchuriki stage. Yeah, that sounds like it'll be fun, hopefully it's easier than the Rasengan, Naruto said. I still can't pop that stupid ball. You need to put more power into it, this jutsu is an A-rank technique, what you're doing is putting only enough chakra for a high B-ranked jutsu, Kurama told him. Okay, I'm going to try again, Naruto said as he picked up the rubber ball again and began to channel chakra into it. He spun his chakra like a whirlpool as he did in the first step. He began to channel even more chakra into it until pop! The rubber ball popped and Naruto could see a shining ball of chakra in place of where the ball once was before it faded away. Yada! I did it! Naruto cheered. Great, now the next time you see that pervert, you can learn the last step, Kurama told him. Now what I want to do is have you sign the summoning contract. You really think I'm ready? Naruto asked. Kit, your chakra levels have grown greatly since the start of these exams, right now you can summon one of the creatures, and be able to fight with only a little bit of exhaustion, the Bijou told him. Okay, Naruto said as he summoned the scroll and opened it. Underneath the Rikudo Senin's name, Naruto wrote his name in blood before pressing his handprint underneath it. So now what? Naruto asked as he put away the scroll. Now, we wait, Kurama said as he hid a grin. Wait for poof. And then the field was empty. Later that night, Heiate Gecko was cursing his own luck. He just had to volunteer to spy on Kabuto Yakushi, the Konoha genin that had a very suspicious record. Now he was hiding behind a few crates of building materials as he listened to hear what Kabuto was doing. I was afraid that you would never show up, Kabuto said. I had to make sure that I wasn't followed, a new voice replied. That's the Jonin leader of the Suna team. Heiate realized. Fair enough, Kabuto chuckled. So how are the preparations coming along? Smoothly, all of our shinobi are on their way while several others are defending the village, Baki told him. But what I'm concerned about is if your leader will be able to provide his own soldiers. Don't worry, Orochimaru-sama is providing an excellent number of shinobi with great skills, Kabuto reassured him. Now then, can you tell me about our secret weapon? I never got the chance to gather the proper data. Fair enough, Baki began. Gara Sabaku is the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi no Tanuki. With the beast's power, he has the ultimate defense in the whole world. The only time he has even been hurt was during the preliminaries where that genin in the green suit fought him. Rock Lee, a student of Meido Gai, Kabuto told him. Despite his quirks, Gai is an excellent taijutsu master. And he is the only person alive who can open 7 of the 8 Hashimen and survive. So will be a problem for the invasion? Baki asked. Hayate's eyes widened. He just had direct confirmation that Suna was planning to invade during the finals. Of course, he will. But he's no match for a rampaging Bijou. Kabuto told him. Oh, I know that, I just wanted to make sure in case I run into him, Baki replied. Kabuto smirked. Now then, I think it's time I got rid of our little rat. Hayate's eyes widened as he realized that he was made. He quickly took to the rooftops as he tried to escape. He didn't get far as he was then caught by the Suna Jonin. You do know that I'll have to kill you now, Baki stated. Hayate just grimaced and pulled out his sword and steadied himself. Baki dashed forward and pulled out a kunai. Hayate met him and the two began a deadly dance that sent sparks flying. Hayate jumped back and made 2 bunshin. The 3 Hayats leapt up into the air and fell towards Baki. Mikazuki no Mai, they all shouted as they all converged on the Suna Jonin. However, Baki was able to catch the real Hayate's sword while the other 2 phased through him. Impressive, to have mastered such a skill at such a young age is nothing to laugh at, Baki praised. However, I'm afraid it ends here. How about a taste of my blade of wind? Baki then formed a sword made out of wind and raised it up. However, before he could attack Hayate and kill him, his eyes glazed over, a common sign of genjutsu. 3. Hurry! Run before he realizes what happened. Hayate looked down and saw a small orange fox with green markings. It was Sasha, the kitsune that Naruto summoned to watch Kabuto. Deciding that the fox wasn't going to harm him, Hayate freed his sword and quickly hid behind a nearby tower. Sasha quickly used a kitsune illusion and made a fake body of Hayate, only this one was dead and bloody. Sasha manipulated the genjutsu that Baki was in and then released it as she hid. Baki looked down at the body he killed, before jumping away. The fake Hayate faded away and Sasha approached the hidden Konoha shinobi. Thanks, Hayate said as he saw the small animal approach. So, why are you here? My summoner assigned me to watch that Kabuto fellow due to his suspicious actions in the exam, Sasha told him. I think I have an idea as to who your summoner is, Hayate smirked. Is it Naruto? How did you know? Sasha asked. With his condition, it's not that hard, Hayate informed her. Sasha giggled at that as she saw how obvious it was for the people who actually knew Naruto. Now how about we go and tell Hokage-sama about what happened here? I think that he would just love to hear about this little invasion. Sasha nodded and the two leapt away as they raced to the Hokage tower. Next day with Sasuke and Kakashi. Sasuke scowled as he lit up another light bulb with his chakra. He was doing chakra exercises to gain control of his lightning chakra. He had to keep the bulb on for 30 minutes before Kakashi would teach him a lightning jutsu. He had already worked on his speed and taijutsu, though he still said that it was only for training against Gaara since Sasuke believed that he would plow right over Naruto. Kakashi sighed as he saw the thoughts running through his student's mind. No matter how hard he tried, Kakashi still couldn't get the Uchiha Scion to get rid of his Avenger attitude. He felt like he was failing his deceased friend Obito due to Sasuke's attitude. He wanted Sasuke to cherish his bonds in Konoha in order to rebuild the Uchiha clan. However, it looked like Sasuke would rather sever those bonds in order to kill Itachi. Maybe Naruto might be able to knock some sense into him, Kakashi thought as he looked up at a cloud that was lazily floating by. If he wasn't standing up, he might have been mistaken for a Nara. 30 minutes later, Sasuke threw the light bulb at Kakashi, who caught it between two fingers. "So, you're finished?" Kakashi asked in his lazy tone. "Yes, now let's get to working on some Raitun Jutsu," Sasuke demanded. Kakashi sighed and pocketed the light bulb. "Okay then, what we're going to do is teach you one of my own personal jutsu." Kakashi trailed off as he idly gazed over to a nearby boulder. "Come out." From behind the boulder, a small yellow chicken walked out while pecking the ground. Sasuke raised an eyebrow at Kakashi and asked, "Has all that porn made your brain go to mush?" Well, at least he's joking, Kakashi thought as he sent Sasuke a small glare. He then walked over and picked up the chicken as it stared at Kakashi curiously. He then put the chicken down and quickly pulled down his mask to bite his thumb before resetting the mask and making several hand seals. Kuchios no Jutsu. Kakashi slammed his hand on the ground and a seal matrix erupted from his hand before there was a puff of smoke and Pakken was sitting there. "Yo Kakashi, what do you need?" Pakken asked. "Hey Pakken, I was wondering if you knew who this guy was," Kakashi asked, motioning to the chicken. "I can sense chakra coming from it, but I've never seen a chicken like this." Pakken trotted over to the chicken and sniffed it. Startled, the chicken raced behind the boulder while Pakken chased it. "Wait. I just want to talk," Pakken said. "All this for just a chicken?" Sasuke asked himself. Kakashi smiled and told him, "A ninja can never be too careful." Pakken came back a minute later with the chicken following him. "It's just a normal chicken. Its feathers were probably painted or something." "Alright, thanks anyway," Kakashi said as he tossed the small pug a treat. Pakken happily accepted the treat before heading back home. "Okay then, let's get back to work," Kakashi said as he began to teach Sasuke. Neither of them noticed the chicken head back behind the boulder and smirking before it vanished in a puff of smoke. "With Niji." "Excellent, my new technique is perfected," Niji said with a smirk. Ten, who was helping him train, panted as she asked, "Do you really need this? It's only Hinata-chan you're fighting." "Please, I won't need to try against that failure," Niji scoffed. "I'm going to need these techniques on the other matches." Ten sighed and said, "I know that you don't like the main branch, but don't you think that taking it out on Hinata-chan is a little harsh?" Niji glared at her and said, "Fate has decreed her to be a worthless failure, I am merely going to remind her of her place." The bun-haired girl just shook her head at her teammates' lookout on life. She just hoped that Hinata would be able to knock some kind of sense into him during their match. If not, well, she could always borrow her dad's war hammer. "With Yujito." "Katon, mouse hairball." Yujito shouted as she blew out a small blue fireball that erupted into mini fireballs. The fireballs then impacted against a nearby boulder, leaving several large scorch marks. "Excellent kitten, you're getting better every day," Matatabi praised. "Yeah, I just hope that I'll be able to perform well in these exams, some of those competitors look tough," Yujito said. "Don't worry, with my help, you'll be able to win this," Matatabi reassured her. "Just so long as we don't face Kurama and Ai-san." "Who?" Yujito asked. "Just the Kyuubi," Matatabi informed her. "Yo! Yujito! What you doin' out here?" It's gonna be time for the show. Killer Bee rapped as he entered the clearing. Yujito sighed and asked, "What do you need, Bee-sensei?" "I was wondering if you was noticing that there were some bijou in the hood?" Bee asked. "Yes, there's you, me, the Nanabai, Ichibi, and Kyubi," Yujito answered, already knowing about her fellow bijou that were in Konoha. "FO show." Bee cheered. "There's gonna be a bijou smackdown soon." "We." Yujito just sighed and wondered what she did to deserve having a sensei like this. For days later, Konoha Hospital. "I never thought that an Akimichi would be able to eat themselves sick," Naruto commented as he and Shikamaru exited Choji's hospital room. "Just goes to show you that there's a first time for everything," Shikamaru chuckled. Naruto laughed and put his hands behind his head. "Yeah, but this is like a once-in-a-lifetime event. Nobody's ever going to believe this," Naruto said. "Say, how about we go and see Lee? I heard that Tsunade-sama was able to save his shinobi career with some complicated surgery, but he still has to stay in the hospital for a month or two," Shikamaru suggested. "Sure, I wanted to visit him the other day, but my training just went wild," Naruto told him. "Knowing your definition of wild, I'm afraid to ask what happened," Shikamaru shuddered. Naruto grinned and asked, "Are you sure it wouldn't be too troublesome?" "Sorry, that word only works for Nara men," Shikamaru said as he grinned at the blonde Uzumaki. Naruto just laughed in response. Suddenly, they felt a large amount of ki coming from down the hall. Giving each other a glance, they raced down the hall, already knowing where it was coming from. Inside Lee's hospital room, the young genin was sleeping in order to let his body heal. Of course, the drugs that Tsunade put in his water to make sure he stayed asleep instead of sneaking away to train had nothing to do with it. Nope, not a thing. Back to the story, grains of sand were crawling towards Lee. They had just managed to crawl onto the bed sheets when the door opened and Naruto barged in with Shikamaru following. The Nara quickly trapped the invading Gaara in his Kage main while Naruto quickly cleared the sand away by pulling off the bed sheets. Surprisingly, all of the sand was pulled off of the bed. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Naruto questioned as he rounded on Gaara. "I was going to kill him," Gaara said as if he was talking about the weather. "And why do you need to kill him?" "You won your match in the preliminaries," Shikamaru reminded him. Gaara glanced at the Nara out of the corner of his eye and said, "I wanted to kill him because I felt like it. I need to kill to prove my existence." "What kind of messed up crap is that?" Naruto asked. And so Gaara told them of his life, and how he was turned into the being that he was today with his uncle's actions. He told them about how he needed to prove his existence by killing others, and because his mother demanded blood. "Tell Shikaku that his big brother's going to give him a pounding for his stupidity," Naruto growled out. He then walked up in front of Shikamaru and activated his Mangekyo Sharingan, giving the red-haired Jinchuriki a dark glare. Gaara gasped and clutched his head as he backed away to the window, Shikamaru letting him go, seeing that he wasn't going to do anything. You will definitely prove my existence. I will enjoy killing you, Naruto Uzumaki." With that, the Suna Genin left in a swirl of sand. Chunin Exam Stadium. The time had come. After an entire month of training, the Chunin exam finals were about to begin. Many people had gathered here today. Some to see which village they would be able to rely on, others to get promotions, others to because of an ulterior motive, some to prove their existences, and one because his mother made him. Any guesses as to who that last one was? Standing before all of the genin was Genma Shiranui. The Senbon Chewing Jonin was analyzing each of them as they awaited for the finals to begin. He saw Naruto conversing with Shino, Hinata, and Shikamaru. Fu and Yujito were talking about how excited they were for their match. Dosu and Kin were just standing silently, as were Gaara and Temari. Though the Suna Kunoichi seemed nervous about something other than the fights in Genma's eyes. And Sasuke Uchiha was the only one missing. In the stands, Kushina sat with Natsumi, Shizune, Hitomi, Hayashi, and Hanabi. While the Hyuga family would normally sit with their clan, They decided to separate themselves from the elders so they could watch Hinata without having to listen to the Hyuga elders' dislike of her. "Are you nervous, Kushina-chan?" Hitomi asked as she looked at her friend. "Kinda, I'm just a little nervous about Naruto-kun facing Gaara," Kushina admitted. Hayashi raised an eyebrow and asked, "Shouldn't you be concerned with him facing the Uchiha? He's no pushover." The Uzumaki woman rolled her eyes and said, "Please. That spoiled brat won't be able to touch my Sochi. Not after the training he was put through." The Hyuga patriarch smirked and said, "I don't know who I should feel sorry for. Naruto for having to endure your training methods, or Sasuke because he's going to be Naruto's new punching bag. That's assuming he gets here," Shizune pointed out. Meanwhile, the two girls were chatting about how their siblings were going to crush the competition. The girls were sitting next to some signs that were placed on the seat by them, along with a rolled-up banner. "Nichan's going to beat Niji and then beat everyone else," Hanabi declared. "But what about Nisan? He's going to win the tournament," Natsumi asked. Hanabi thought for a moment and said, "I know. Let's cheer for both Nichan and Nato and Ai-san. Maybe they can win the tournament together." Natsumi smiled at the idea. "Yeah. Then both of them can be happy." "So Kurinai," Asuma began as he sat with his fellow Jonins and the genin who didn't make it. "How do you think Hinata's going to do?" Kurinai flashed him a grin that would have made Guy proud and told him, "She's gonna give Niji the match of his life." "So you have that much confidence in her?" Asuma questioned. Anko swallowed a piece of dango and said, "Smokey, she's gonna be dancing circles around Pretty Boy." Up in the Kage booth, Hiruzen was sitting in his seat with Tsunade standing next to him. Looking to his left, he could see the muscular figure of the Raikage, followed by his right-hand man Darui. "Raikage Dano, it's good to see you," Hiruzen greeted as he stood up to shake the man's hand. "The feeling is mutual, Hokage Dano," he said as he shook the Sandaime's hand. "Tsunade, it's been a while." "That it has," Tsunade replied. "Oh? And when did you two meet?" Hiruzen asked. "It was a few years back when I was still running around. I think it was a while before Jiraiya convinced me to return. Anyway, I had helped the Raikage when he and some of his men were attacked. One of them had an exploding bug in his chest," Tsunade explained. "By the way, you haven't had any complaints about any eccentric rapping, have you?" A asked. "No, why do you ask?" Hiruzen asked. "I got the urge to race here and beat B several times on our trip," A answered. Just then, the Kazekage arrived with two of his guards. "I hope your trip through the desert wasn't difficult, Kazekage Dano," Hiruzen said as he greeted the masked man. "It was fine, Hokage Dano. I would be more worried if you had to make the trip in your age," the Kazekage replied. "Shouldn't you be looking for a successor?" Hiruzen laughed and told him, "I plan on keeping this hat on my head for a couple more years." However, Hiruzen was thinking. "Do you really think you could fool me, Orochimaru? It does not matter if you shed your skin 1,000 times, you still reek of snakes and death. Not to mention you act nothing like the Yandere Kazekage." "Well then, if we may take our seats, I'll begin the exam," Hiruzen said as he walked over to the railing while the other Kages took their seats. "Welcome everyone to the Chunin exams finals," Hiruzen announced after using a voice amplification jutsu to get everyone's attention. "We have a lot of talented genin this time and I am sure that they will perform greatly for your enjoyment." Down below, Genma faced the genin and addressed them, "All right you guys, look sharp. There are a lot of important people here. So it wouldn't be a good idea to make yourselves look like fools, because you're not just fighting for a promotion. You're fighting for your village's reputation. Now then, the first match will be between Hinata Hyuga and Niji Hyuga. The rest of you will have to go up to the competitor's box and wait for your matches," Genma said. Everyone except for the two Hyuga left the field. Naruto quickly flashed Hinata a grin and wished her luck. "Alright then, the rules are the same as the preliminaries, but I'll remind you what they were anyway," Genma said as he stood between the two. "In this arena, my word is law, you will fight your opponent until one of you forfeits, is knocked out, or dies. Killing your opponent is frowned upon, but not against the rules. If I say that the match is over, then it's over, you will step away from your opponent or I will be forced to take drastic measures. Understood? Hi, both Hyugas said. Genma nodded and turned back to the crowd. The first match of the Chunin exams finals is between Hinata Hyuga and Niji Hyuga. Two Hyugas, interesting matchup, A said. You do know that there is still hostility between Kyumo and the Hyuga clan, right? Hiruzen asked. A sighed and rubbed his temples. It's the elders, they've been greedy for bloodlines ever since my father was in the office. They've gotten worse ever since. Back in the arena, Hinata and Niji had faced each other. Hinata-sama, Niji began, it would be in your best interests to forfeit this match right now, before you embarrass the clan. Hinata took a deep breath and said, I told myself that I would face you here and now, and show you that there is no need to hold any hatred in your heart. Enough with your pathetic stalling, Proctor, start the match, Niji demanded as he slipped into the Juken stance. Hinata sighed and followed suit. The first match between Hinata and Niji Hyuga will now begin. Genma said as he raised his arm up. Hajime. Chunin Exam Stadium. Hajime. Genma jumped back and out of the way to avoid the two Hyugas as they charged forward, clashing palms as soon as they got within striking distance. Hinata and Niji continued to clash palms for a minute before jumping back. I'll admit, you've gotten stronger Hinata-sama, but a failure is still a failure, Niji said. Hinata just sighed and asked him, is it so hard to believe that someone could get stronger? Niji just scoffed and told her, it doesn't matter how hard you train, if fate decrees that you're a failure, then you're a failure. Nobody can change their destiny. I never believed in destiny. Hinata declared as she dashed towards Niji. The elder Hyuga just scowled and met her attack with his own. Hinata went for a palm strike to the chest, but Niji deflected it before countering with his own. Hinata bent backwards and watched as the palm flew over her face, before she put her hands on the ground and pushed herself up, kicking Niji in the chest in the process before she leapt back and threw several shuriken. Seeing the shuriken coming for him, Niji used small bursts of chakra to deflect them with some Juken strikes. He then raced towards Hinata and began a barrage of Juken strikes, making her either dodge or deflect them. Unfortunately, Niji managed to land a palm strike on Hinata's shoulder, sending her skidding back. You see, nothing you do can change your fate, Niji declared with a smirk as he watched Hinata land on the ground. Up in the competitor's booth, Naruto gripped the handrail tightly. Shino saw his distress and placed a hand on his shoulder. Have faith in her, she won't give up that easily, the young Aburame told his teammate. Naruto nodded and returned his attention to the match. I do have faith in her, but I just can't help but worry, Naruto told him. Back down in the arena, Hinata pressed her palm to her shoulder and released some chakra, opening up the block Tenketsu and releasing the stress. She faced her cousin and slipped back into the Juken stance. Niji and Ai-san, Hinata began, it wouldn't be wise to underestimate me. It may result in costing you this match. Niji scowled deeper and raced towards Hinata before he began to unleash another barrage of Juken strikes. Hinata took a deep breath and channeled her chakra through her body before she began to dodge all of Niji's strikes with fluid motions. Hayashi raised an eyebrow and turned to his wife. You taught her your own fighting style? Hitomi nodded and told him, when we tested her chakra nature, she turned out to be a wind and water type. Since the regular Juken is made for those with earth nature chakra, it wouldn't work for her. So my style was perfect for her. So it's not that she's not skilled in the Juken, Hayashi muttered. It's more like she can't learn it like I couldn't. Hitomi confirmed. Hayashi sighed, I was afraid that she was a bad student. But it's more like I'm a bad teacher for not checking her affinity. Hitomi placed her hand on top of his in a reassuring manner. Joani-chan. Hanabi cheered while she waved a sign of Hinata standing over a defeated Niji. Now it would be accurate if Hinata hadn't drawn Hinata with waist-length hair and larger proportions, specifically in the chest area. Back down in the arena, Niji was growing frustrated at the fact that Hinata seemed to be dancing around him. Seeing that his current attack was getting him nowhere, Niji leapt back to gain some distance. "What's the matter, Niji and I-san? I thought that you were going to finish me off," Hinata asked in a taunting tone. "Oh, I will, fate has said that I will," Niji told her. "However, I'm going to break you apart just to show you how weak you really are, Ri." Hinata said nothing as she charged at Niji with a fire in her eyes. Niji sent a single two-finger strike at her, only for Hinata to twirl around it and send her own strike at her cousin. Niji quickly moved his arm out of the way, but Hinata lightly grazed him. Niji could already feel the foreign chakra in his arm as it caused him some pain. Hinata sent another strike at Niji, this time at his shoulder. Niji was unable to move out of the way and received a hard strike, closing the chakra points on his shoulder, and by extension his right arm. Niji grimaced as he felt the blow. The strange thing was that he could see the foreign chakra in his shoulder moving down his arm, like water flowing down a river. It was also blocking several tenketsu along the way. "I see that you've noticed," Hinata said as she backed away a few feet. "What have you done?" "This isn't a normal Juken strike," Niji asked. "Because my chakra natures are wind and water, I am unable to correctly perform the Juken to its full potential," Hinata explained. "As a result of that, Ka-chan decided to teach me her own form of the Juken that is made for those who have a flexible body." "So you've learned a bastardized version of our ultimate taijutsu," Niji sneered. Up in the stands, Hitomi, Kushina, and Shizune had to hold Hayashi back as he heard Niji insult his wife's graceful fighting style. Hizashi wanted him to protect his son, not throttle him. Hinata frowned as she heard her cousin insult her mother, though indirectly. "I do not see how it is bastardized, it closed the tenketsu like the regular Juken." "Enough of this, it appears that I'll have to punish you for tainting our invincible fighting style," Niji said as he charged at Hinata. He threw several fast strikes that forced Hinata to utilize Enko's evasion training to its fullest. Hinata quickly moved at fast speeds to try and avoid that. Niji managed to get a couple of hits on her left arm before thrusting a palm strike into her chest, sending her flying back. "You see now how powerless you are?" Niji asked. However, Hinata fell apart into a puddle of water, making Niji's eyes widen in shock before he dove to the side as a palm passed right by where his back would be. When did she learn the Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu? Shino wondered as he looked at his teammate. Naruto just shrugged as he stared at Hinata in wonder. "No idea, maybe Kurenai-sensei or Anko taught her," the blonde suggested. "Interesting, I've never seen a Hyuga use any non-Juken technique besides Kawarimi or Shunshin," the Kazekage noted. "Hinata's very different from the rest of her clan," Hiruzen explained. "She's realized that while the Juken is strong, it can't defeat everything." "Like what?" A asked, generally curious. "Well, we don't know," she said that she would like to be prepared just in case her clan's teachings fail. "I can tell that she'll go far in her shinobi career," A said. "Disgusting," Niji scowled, "you dare to learn a non-Hyuga technique? You bring shame upon our clan." "I prefer the fact that I'm expanding my horizons," Hinata told him as they once more engaged in another taijutsu match. Only this time, they both pushed each other back as their palms met and chakra exploded from them. Hinata dashed forward and aimed several strikes at Niji's back. The Hyuga genius twisted out of the way and went to aim a palm strike at her face. Hinata ducked down low and kicked Niji's legs, making him stumble. Niji landed on his hands, before pushing himself up into the air and landing on his feet. He looked up to see Hinata and several clones throwing shuriken at him. Two of them had taken out their bows and were firing arrows. Seeing that he had no choice, he pulled out one of his trump cards. "Kaiten!" Niji cried as he spun around and created a dome of chakra. The shuriken bounced off of the dome and returned to their senders. Hinata managed to dodge while her clones were turned back into water. "How do you know that move?" Hinata asked as Niji stopped spinning. I merely reverse-engineered it after watching several members of the main branch performing it, Niji informed her. You really are a genius, Hinata said. And you are nothing but a failure that was lucky enough to be born into the main branch, Niji sneered. This time, Kushina, Shizune, and Hayashi had to hold back Hitomi from going down there and killing Niji. Niji dashed forward and prepared to juken her right into the hospital. Hinata deflected his blow and aimed a kick at his side, however, Niji managed to catch her leg before he was forced to let go from another Mizu Bunshin that was firing arrows aimed at his shoulders. Niji jumped away and nailed the clone with a kunai before he landed away from Hinata. It's time to end this, Niji declared as he lowered himself into a particular stance, one that every Hyuga knew all too well. That's... Hayashi stood up with wide eyes. Hayashi, Hitomi began, how does he know that? Hayashi closed his eyes and said, he most likely reverse-engineered it after seeing it performed by one of the main branch as well. He is truly a prodigy. Do you think that Hinata will be alright? Shizune asked. Most likely, Hitomi told her. She should be able to avoid it. If not, well, she can always counter it. Hinata's eyes widened as she saw Niji's stance. She recognized it easily, having seen her father perform the same technique several times. In response, she slipped into her own stance that was similar to the one Niji was in. The only difference was that her limbs were slightly bent and it wasn't as stiff as Niji. Juken, Hak Rokujinyan Sho. Niji cried as he dashed towards Hinata. Juho, Hak Rokujinyan Sho. Hinata cried as she dashed towards Niji as well. Enai Sho. Both of them cried as they deflected each other's strikes. Yan Sho. Again their strikes were deflected. Hachi Sho. Now, Niji slipped up as Hinata had paused in her attack and danced around his strikes, making him stumble before she began to strike his tenketsu while he was unable to stop it. Ju Roku Sho. Sanjuenai Sho. Rokujinyan Sho. Hinata finished the technique with fluid movements and sent Niji flying back with a hard palm strike to the chest. Niji weakly groaned as he struggled to get up. He looked up and saw Hinata looking back at him with hints of sadness in her eyes. I hope that now you understand Niji and Ai-san, Hinata started. Understand that fate is never set in stone. How? Niji asked. How were you able to get strong? Hinata gave him a small smile and said, because I decided to become stronger so I could support my friends. Genma walked over to Niji and said, even a caged bird can be free if he picks at the lock long enough. Your cage is no different. The winner of the first match is Hinata Hyuga. Genma declared as the stadium erupted into cheers. Hinata looked and saw that her family was applauding her and her sister was hugging Natsumi out of joy. She looked over at the contestants' box and saw that Naruto was leaping up and down with happiness while Shino, Futh Yujito, and Temari applauded her. As he walked past Niji who was sitting up, she knelt down and whispered, by the way Nissan, just know that I could have ended the match with one move if you made me angry enough. Niji gulped and smiled nervously as he watched her leave. No way. Lee whispered. Niji lost. He was cleared to come to the arena to watch the matches, but he would have to go back afterwards. Wow, who knew that Hinata was that good? Ino asked. I mean, I knew that she was the best of the girls in taijutsu, but still. Obviously Kurinai-chan and Enko put her through some hard training, Asuma said. Oh, it wasn't just me and Enko-chan, Hitomi-sama helped as well, Kurinai told her fellow jonin. Your student is overflowing with the power of youth. Guy declared. Kurinai's sweat dropped and chuckled nervously as she tried to put Asuma between herself and the spandex-wearing jonin. Makes me wonder how the rest of your team will do, Asuma said. Kurinai just gave him a grin as she imagined herself winning the whole contest all of the jonin senseis made. Very interesting, it looks like she's developed her own version of the juken, A said. It looks like Hitomi decided to teach Hinata her own fighting style, Hiruzen said. The Kazekage raised an eyebrow and asked, what kind of fighting style? Hitomi had developed her own version of the Juken, called the Juho. It performs the same function as the regular Juken as it shuts down the chakra network. The only difference is that the Juho uses flowing movements while the Juken is more of a straightforward attack. So it looks like some of the Hyuga are able to break away from traditions and all that crap, A muttered. Hiruzen's sweat dropped at the blunt statement. Tsunade just giggled at how the Raikage was just as blunt as she is. So, I'd like to put in my vote for Hinata Hyuga to become a Chunin. She displayed great abilities and was able to overcome a clan prodigy. She also showed that she was able to perform some kind of medical jutsu, as she opened the closed tenketsu in his shoulder with only minimal pain, Hiruzen said. I'll hold my vote for now. I'd like to see how she would do against whoever she fights next, the Kazekage said. Me as well, A told him. But what of the other one, Niji? He displayed great potential as he was able to perform a difficult technique. He may have the potential when it comes to strength, but I'd like him to grow a bit more in the mental department, Hiruzen explained. Perhaps next time he won't be so fixated on fate. 2. Great job Hinata-chan. Naruto congratulated as he gave the Hyuga heiress a giant megawatt grin. Said heiress just blushed under the praise as she walked over to her teammate. Thank you Naruto-kun, Hinata said. She took her place next to the blonde as they stood over the railings. Nice move, something new? Fu asked as she stood on the other side of Hinata. Oh, yes. It's something that Ka-chan taught me. Hinata then went on to explain how the Juken wasn't right for her, so Hitomi decided to teach her daughter her own version of the Juken. Wow, I never knew that Aunt Hitomi was that good, Naruto said in surprise. Wait, she's your aunt? Fu asked. Naruto waved her off. Nah, she just treats me like family, and since I'm an orphan, I decided to call her aunt. Not to mention she is practically family, especially since she's your godmother, Kurama reminded him. Over the month-long break, Naruto decided to ask Kushina if he had a godmother since he had a godfather. The elder Uzumaki informed him that Hitomi was asked to be his godmother, and that she accepted the job with joy. 1. Shino and Dosu had made their way down to the arena and faced each other. Neither one said anything as they were mostly silent types. The second match between Shino Aburame and Dosu Kinyuta will now begin. Hajime! Genma declared. The crowd cheered as both fighters faced off. Shino and Dosu began to circle each other, waiting to see who would make the first move as a gentle breeze blew through the area. Seeing it to be a signal, both combatants raced forward and threw a punch. Both fists hit each other and Shino promptly fell apart into a swarm of bugs that were moving around erratically due to the sound waves produced by Dosu's melody arm. Dosu turned around and saw that Shino was emerging from the nearby foliage since his clone was destroyed. When did you create the clone? Dosu asked. During our walk down the stairs, Shino answered. I wanted to sapidly see how well you've improved during the month. Apparently that plan isn't going to work. Dosu silently agreed and dashed forward with a kunai in his gauntletless hand. Shino drew one tanto and the two clashed blades. Shino made a jab towards Dosu's stomach and the mummified boy hopped back before swinging his melody arm forward and sending a sound wave at Shino. Shino pumped chakra into his feet and jumped high into the air as the sound waves impacted against the ground he once occupied. Shino sent a swarm of insects at Dosu. The Oto Genin jumped back while flipping a kunai into the air. Shino's eyes widened as he saw the explosion tag and quickly recalled his insects. Unfortunately, nearly half of the swarm he sent out was caught in the blast and incinerated. The Aburame heir cursed in his mind as he felt all of those connections fading away. He realized that he needed to be more careful as Dosu was full of surprises. Speaking of Dosu, the Oto Genin was charging towards him while pumping chakra into his gauntlet. Shino quickly threw several shuriken that caused Dosu to stumble and lose focus of his gathered chakra. Wow! Shino's gotten stronger over this break. Naruto said as he watched Shino and Dosa trade blows as the two had once again clashed kunai and sword. Hinata nodded in agreement. Still, I wonder what else Shino has. I ran into him over the month and we spoke. He said that he had a secret weapon that he was very eager to learn. Naruto shrugged and said, guess we'll just have to wait and see. Feeling a pair of eyes focused on him, Naruto turned to see Gaara with a hungry look in his eyes. Stop giving me that look, Naruto demanded. Mother will have your blood Uzumaki. Gaara exclaimed insanely. Naruto narrowed his eyes and said, since you're talking about your mother, give her this message from an old friend of hers. If I find out that you're causing problems, you damn Tanuki, I'm gonna turn you to glass again. Inside Gaara's seal, Shikaku paled greatly and shivered as he remembered who turned him into glass countless times in the past. Over in Fu, Chome gasped in shock as he also remembered who had turned Shikaku into glass. Is he the one? The one who would be able to sign the contract? It's possible that Kurama and Iison told him what to say, but I'm really hoping for him to have the contract, Chome thought. Matatabi had similar thoughts from within Yujito. Back in the arena, Shino ducked under Dosu's kunai before aiming to incapacitate him by slicing up his legs. Dosu jumped up before landing a kick against Shino's chest, sending the shades-wearing genin back a few feet. Shino mentally cursed in frustration. He wasn't able to get many insects onto Dosu as their buzzing alerted the Oto genin with his ability to detect sounds. He was only able to get about a dozen of them, not enough to do even the minimal damage on a genin's chakra levels. I'm afraid that you'll have to do better than that, Dosu said. You may have a few insects on me, but I can tell that they're not affecting my chakra all that much. Your skill to detect the buzzing of my insects is making it difficult to get them on you, Shino told him. Dosu just smirked under his bandages before he pulled back his right arm and charged it with chakra. I suggest that you surrender now. This next move might turn you into a deaf man, Dosu told him. Giving up has never been an option to me, Shino said. I'm going to win here. Dosu sighed. I gotta learn to stop preaching to the chair. He sent his fist forward as HTE Melody arm began to let out sound waves. Shino quickly threw a kunai at the Melody arm and listened to the loud clang that rang through the stadium as soon as the knife hit the device. Arg! Dosu screamed in pain as he clutched his head. Shino winced as the sound reached him, but it wasn't as bad as being at ground zero, like his adversary was. What did you do? Dosu yelled. It's actually quite simple, Shino began. During the month we had to train, I took some time to experiment and see if there was any way to counter your sound attacks. I discovered that if I were to hit your gauntlet with another metal while you were making any of your sound attacks, the sound waves would be disrupted. And now I also see that it harms you as well, as the sound waves would go out of control and hurt you the most since you're at ground zero. He's a bright young boy, the Kazekage said. I can see that he'll have the intelligence to rival a young Nara in the future. Why only a young Nara? A asked. Hiruzen smirked and told him, because it's nearly impossible to outsmart an adult Nara. Only the Yondaime Hokage was able to do so at least twice during a shogi match between him and Shikaku Nara. I would have paid to see that, A chuckled as he shook his head. Though I am curious as to why he is wielding swords, I always thought that the Aburame preferred to fight from a distance, the Kazekage stated. Some of them have decided to try other fighting styles. Shino has been learning Kinjutsu from a cousin of his who also practices with swords, the Sandaime explained. Dosu growled as the ringing in his ears faded away and he glared at Shino. Though the ringing had disappeared, he couldn't use his sound detection technique to listen for any of the Aburame's bugs. This might not end well for me, Dosu thought as he pulled out two kunai and held them in a reverse grip. Shino tightened his grip on his swords before he dashed forward. Dosu raised his kunai just in time to stop Shino from slicing his arms. Once again, the two had engaged in a heated match of blades. Sparks were seen as the metal clashed against each other. Shino jumped back as Dosu leapt forward while trying to land a winning hit on the bug user. Dosu overextended his swipe and tripped over his feet. Shino capitalized on this and moved in quickly. He zipped behind Dosu and pulled back on the mummy's large coat before placing a sword at his neck. Using his free arm, he grabbed Dosu's left arm while his insects flooded the melody arm. "I suggest that you surrender now," Shino said. Dosu tried to think of a way out of this, but all of his options were eliminated. He couldn't throw a kunai or metal object at his melody arm to create any sound, and even if he could, he would just end up like Zaku after his match. "The Oto Genin side, I concede." Genma stepped in and announced, "The winner of the second match is Shino Aburame." The crowd cheered for another Konoha victory. Shino silently waved to the crowd before he pulled Dosu to his feet. "Why are you helping me?" the Oto Genin asked. "You may have been my opponent, but that does not mean that I have to dismiss you as an inferior opponent," Shino told him. "That would be poor sportsmanship on my part." Dosu just stared at him with a confused expression before Shino walked away. The medics asked if Dosu was in need of any assistance, but he just brushed them off as he would be fine. Konoha is very different than Oto, Dosu thought. But strangely, it seems to be a good kind of difference. As soon as Shino entered the competitor's box, he was pulled into a group hug by Naruto, who had already had his arm around Hinata. "Yes! That A2 wins for Team 8. Naruto cheered. "We're going to dominate these exams. Even though I am pleased with the fact that Team 8 has already won half of its matches, can you please let go so Hinata and I can breathe?" Shino asked as he eyed the red-faced Hyuga. Even though she had stopped blushing, she couldn't help it this time since she was practically face to face with Naruto. "Oops, sorry guys," Naruto said sheepishly as he let go of his teammates. Hinata took deep calming breaths in order to prevent herself from fainting. Off to the side, Fu and Yujito were talking amongst themselves. "Man, I never thought that Team 8 would be so strong," Fu said. "I mean, I knew that they were strong in the preliminaries, but now it's like they're completely different. Makes you wonder what training they were put through," Yujito muttered. "So how did your training over the month go?" Fu scowled and said, "It would have been great if I actually had a caring human teacher. Komi-kun was the only one who could teach me anything since the rest of my team decided to go home." Yujito sighed as she was expecting something like this. "Don't worry, one day they'll see just how important to the village you really are." "You have no idea how right you are," Chomei thought. "The more they keep Fu out of the village, the more they kill themselves." "Well, that was an interesting match," Tsunade said. "I didn't expect Shino to figure out how to disable Dosu's melody arm." "So you knew about the device?" the Kazekage asked the slug Sonin. "Just the basics of it after seeing it in the preliminaries," Tsunade told him. After he explained its workings to his opponent, I absent-mindedly began to think about how to counter such a device and came up with the same solution that Shino did. "I'll give Aburame-san my vote. I think that he has what it takes to be Chunin," I told everyone. He was able to break away from his clan's preferred fighting style while keeping some of its basic elements. Plus his quick thinking and intelligence shows that he has the mindset for a Chunin. "I agree," Hiruzen said. "What about you, Kazekage Dano?" The masked Kage nodded in agreement, and Hiruzen said, "Very well, Shino Aburame will be promoted to Chunin." "That's 2 for 2 Kurenai," Asuma sighed as he looked at the Kunoichi's face-splitting grin. So far, Kurenai was winning the entire bet that the Jonin senseis made. The flames of youth burn brightly within Kurenai's team. Guy declared. "Guy sensei. I must make my own flames of youth burn even brighter." Lee shouted. "Lee! Sensei! Lee! Sensei!" Kurenai quickly put a genjutsu over the two that prevented everyone from seeing the sunset image that would be seen. Asuma gave a sigh of relief as soon as the genjutsu was placed. "What kind of training did you put them through, Kurenai-sensei?" Choji asked. Kurenai glanced at the young Akimichi and said, "The kind that they wanted. Hinata wants to be strong so she can become a strong clan head, Shino wants to lead his clan into new heights, and last I checked, none of our Hokages were pushovers." "You really think that Naruto's gonna make it?" Kiba asked. Who knows? If he does, then I can at least have the pleasure of saying that I trained a Hokage, Kurenai told him. You forgot another reason why Hinata wants to be strong, Ino told her. Kurenai raised an eyebrow and asked, what other reason? Ino grinned and said, so she can become strong for her Narukuen. Kurenai bit her lip hard to keep from bursting out in laughter. Asuma and the rest of the present genin, Sans Lee and Tenten, the latter who had gone to see Niji, just laughed nice and hard. Where did you hear about a nickname like that? The only nickname that Naruto has is Nato Ni-san, since that's what Hanabi Hyugas called him since she could talk, Kurenai asked. Me and Hinata had a sleepover during the academy and we were playing Truth or Dare, Ino explained. One time when she picked Truth, I asked her what nicknames she would have for our friends. She told me nicknames for everyone, but when she reached Naruto, she clammed up. So then I decided to practice my interrogation skills until she told me that nickname for Naruto. I'm a little concerned as to what method of interrogation you used, Kurenai admitted. Oh relax, it was harmless, Ino said. All it did was leave her breathless for a few minutes. Let me guess, you saw Naruto and Hinata playing around one time during our recess back at the early days of the academy? Choji asked. Ino just grinned and nodded. The third match will be between Temari Sabaku and Shikamaru Nara. Genma announced. Temari jumped over the railing and flew down onto the arena on her giant fan. Ugh, maybe I should just forfeit, Shikamaru muttered. Nonsense. This girl isn't as troublesome as you think. Naruto told him. Unfortunately for the lazy Nara, Temari managed to hear Naruto's words. What did he say about me? The blonde Kunoichi roared. Shikamaru went wide-eyed and turned to the Uzumaki. Naruto! You dash! He was cut off as Naruto gave him a rather hard slap on the back that sent him over the railing and into the arena. Naruto turned around and saw Hinata holding onto the railing as she tried to contain her giggles. Shino just walked up to him and said, Naruto, that was cruel and heartless. And? Naruto asked with a grin. And I enjoyed the show very much. Shino admitted. Naruto-kun? Hinata began as she composed herself. Why did you throw Shikamaru over the railing if he didn't want to fight? 2 reasons, Naruto told her. One was that if he quit before it began, then he would probably get a beating from both his mother and Ino. And the other reason? Yujito asked as she listened in. To give the Teimei more time to get here so I can kick his ass from here to Yuki no Kuni. Up in the Kage booth, Hiruzen couldn't contain his laughter as he watched the spectacle while Tsunade was giggling madly. A and Darui exchanged looks and the blonde Raikage said, I feel like I'm being left out of something here. Hiruzen managed to control himself before saying, I'm sorry about that, but Naruto just unknowingly recreated the way that Shikaku Nara met his wife Yoshino. Oh? Do elaborate, the Raikage asked, interested in the story. Well, Tsunade began, it was during the Chunin exams in Konoha. Shikaku was matched up against Yoshino, but he wouldn't go down, saying that the fight was too troublesome. Yoshino misheard him and thought that he called her troublesome, so she started yelling at him to get down there. Choza and Inoichi, having heard enough of this, pushed Shikaku over the railing and into the fight. The Raikage doubled over with laughter as he tried to compose himself. The Kazekage showed no outward emotions, but inside, Orochimaru was chuckling as he remembered the incident. Are you going to get up, or am I going to have to start the fight with you on the floor? Genma asked as he looked at Shikamaru. Said Nara sighed before he got up and took his place across from Temari, who was still sending Shikamaru a death glare that would make Gaara proud, if he was capable of it, that is. The third match between Temari Sabaku and Shikamaru Nara will now begin. Hajime. Genma leapt out of the way as the match started. Temari quickly opened up her fan and sent a blast of wind at Shikamaru. The lazy Nara quickly jumped out of the way and into the trees. A shadow quickly darted out of the forest and Temari jumped back to avoid it. The shadow then stopped at a certain distance and Temari then made a mark in the dirt with her fan. About 15 meters, Temari said as she judged the distance between her and Shikamaru. Looks like this is your limit. All I have to do is stay behind this line and bombard you with my jutsu until you either surrender, or get knocked unconscious. There goes my original plan, Shikamaru sighed. Looks like it won't be a quick victory for me this time. He quickly hid behind a tree as Temari began to pepper him with blasts of wind from her oversized fan. Why can't it be a cloud right now, he lamented. All they do is float around without a care in the world. Futon, Kamaitashi. Temari shouted as she sent a very large blast of razor-sharp wind blades at the tree line. Shikamaru quickly braced himself as the wind made the trees shake under the pressure. He quickly squatted down and made a unique hand seal. Shikamaru opened his eyes as he came up with a plan. Temari sighed as she swung her fan once more. She was starting to get tired of just blasting the trees and waiting for her opponent to do something. The shadow darted towards her again, and Temari sighed at the failed attempt. But what she didn't expect was for the shadow to pass the line. Temari quickly jumped back a few feet before the shadow stopped once again. I see, so as the shadows made by the wall grow, so does your range, Temari noted. If you had waited a little longer, you might have caught me with that. Suddenly she saw a small circular shadow on the floor. She looked up and saw that Shikamaru's jacket was floating in the air tied to a kunai. Quickly realizing something, she looked down and saw Shikamaru's shadow speeding towards her after it connected with the jacket's shadow. She quickly jumped back a great distance until the shadow stopped. You almost had me with that one too, Temari said as she landed. But you'll have to do better than that in order to beat me. Shikamaru sighed as he mentally marked that plan as a failure. He pulled out several kunai with explosion tags and threw them at Temari from behind the tree. The Tsunagenin batted them away with the wind, but instead of there being any explosions, they released a large green smoke screen. Does he really think that some smoke is gonna stop me? Temari asked herself. All I have to do is dash. She was cut off as she felt a burning sensation in her eyes and throat. She tried to blink away the tears and cough out the fire in her mouth, but to no avail. He still had those? Naruto wondered. What is that? Fu asked. A special smoke bomb that I made during my days in the academy, Naruto answered. It has a mixture of items that irritate both the eyes and throat, perfect for when you want to get someone out of a building and into a trap. Particularly one that involves tar and feathers. How did you make it? Fu asked. Lots of patience, onions, and a heavy mixture of cinnamon and pepper. Word of warning, wear goggles and a gas mask when either making them or using them. Aya! Temari screeched as she ran out of the smoke, furiously wiping at her eyes and coughing a great deal. Shikamaru saw this as his chance and dashed out of the trees towards her in order to get within range. Kagemain no Jutsu! Shikamaru cried as he stopped and sent out his shadow. 1 second, Temari was trying to restore her vision, the next she was frozen in place. She blinked out the tears in her eyes and looked to see that Shikamaru had connected his shadow to hers. Looks like I got you, Shikamaru smirked as he forced Temari to stand upright. He saw that she had unintentionally dropped her fan in the smoke, so he couldn't threaten to bash her head with it. Shikamaru sighed and raised his hand in the air, making Temari do the same. He lazily glanced around before taking in a deep breath. Troublesome, I give up. What? Temari yelled. Shikamaru sighed and said, I'm practically out of chakra anyway, I can't really hold this for any longer. So I'm throwing in the towel here. Winner by forfeit, Temari Sabaku. Genma announced. The crowd booed and began to throw garbage at Shikamaru, who did nothing to deflect them as it was too troublesome. Why am I not surprised? Naruto sighed. We just know Shikamaru all that well, Shino told him. Yujito looked between the two. Was he supposed to do that? He's a Nara, I'm just surprised he didn't do it in the preliminaries, Naruto told her. As I expected, Hiruzen sighed. I'm just surprised that he didn't quit right away. I'm rather disappointed, Ace said. He had her right where he wanted her and he just quit. I was, however, surprised by his plan to distract her. What was that smoke bomb anyway? It was a special smoke bomb that was made by our resident prank master, Naruto Uzumaki, Hiruzen said with a grin. If I remember correctly, it was a mixture of onions, and a lot of pepper and cinnamon. I'm a little disappointed with how easily my daughter was defeated, the Kazekage muttered. I think that she did just fine, Hiruzen said. So I think that I'd like to vote for both of them to be promoted. They were both very calculating and strong in their own ways. I'm going to give my vote to the girl. I would like for the Nara to at least grow some more as it would benefit him in the long run, Ace said. Oh, don't worry, I'm planning on bringing all of the Konoha Genin together in order to toughen them up, Tsunade said. Will you be having Jiraiya assist you? I heard from Yujito that he was in the village, A asked. Depends if I can get his perverted ass away from the hot springs long enough, Tsunade grumbled. If not, I'm sure that I can find a good replacement. I think I'll give them my vote as well. My daughter has a high talent for futon jutsu and is on her way to be one of the most skilled in Suna. Plus her strategic thinking is an excellent bonus, the Kazekage said. And the Nara shows promise as a future commander. Then both Temari and Shikamaru will be promoted to Chunin, Hiruzen said. You! Temari shouted as she raced up to the contestants' box and pointed at Naruto. Me, was all Naruto could ask before Temari was in his face. Shino wisely backed away from the red-faced Hinata who was glaring lasers into the back of Temari's head. You bribed him to forfeit, didn't you? Temari accused him. Now wait just a minute. Naruto said as he pushed Temari back. I threw him in there for both your benefit and my own. He was going to quit when he was up here, that would have prevented you from showing your skills to the judges, and given Uchiha less time to get here. Temari blushed in embarrassment and backed away. Oh, sorry. Was all she said before retreating to the other side of the arena. Fu and Yujito had already made their way down to the arena and stood before each other. Both had confident grins on their faces as they awaited the start of their match. The fourth match will be between Fu of Taki and Yujito Ni of Kyumo. Genma announced. The crowd's cheers were not as loud as before, but that was to be expected since no Konoha Genin were fighting. You ready? Fu asked as she lowered herself. I should be asking you that question, Yujito told her with a smirk. Hajime. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed this what if and want to see next part of it, comment down below and let me know. Also share this video with your friends. See you in the next video. Peace.